Hello, thyroid thrivers. Welcome back to Hypothyroid Chef. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach. Have you ever felt confused about which cooking fats are healthy, which are unhealthy, which to use, which to avoid, which ones are best for thyroid-friendly cooking, which ones are best for high, medium, and low heat cooking? If so, you're not alone and you're in the right place. We're going to cover all of that today in this quick video on thyroid healthy cooking fats and oils. I'll also show you a lot of my personal pantry picks and where you can find them for yourself. And don't worry about taking notes today. I've put everything together for you in my free Healthy Fats and Oils guide. There's a link to that in the show notes, so you can download that really easy. It's like a 2 or 3 page download that's going to include everything we'll talk about today for easy reference. Before we dive in, let's talk about why healthy fats matter for you, for your thyroid health. Well, first of all, fats are a big part of how our body produces and balances hormones, including thyroid hormone. They also help support our brain function. So things like brain fog, cognitive clarity are going to be helped by getting healthy fats in your diet. Also, healthy fats can help reduce inflammation, which is crucial for any of us managing Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. And they also, in many cases, will help us absorb nutrients like vitamins A, D, E, or K. All of those are fat soluble, meaning that they need some healthy fat in order to help your body absorb and benefit from those nutrients. But not all fats are created equal. Some of them are really amazing for your health, others not so much. And some are great for high heat cooking, others not so much. Some types of oil refining might be okay. Some types of oil refining, not so much. So we're gonna break all of that down. So let's start by talking about the best cooking fats for high, medium, and low heat cooking. I'm going to share what's in my pantry with you. This isn't, all of the options out there. There's plenty of other great products out there, but this will kind of give you an idea of what I like to use and why and for what cooking purposes. So we're going to go down the line from high heat cooking oils all the way to low heat cooking oils. And we'll talk a little bit about, some of what the label terminology means along the way, so that when you're in the grocery store staring at that wall of like 100 different choices for cooking oils, you can look at those labels and kind of discern what the different terms mean and what fats and oils might be healthier versus unhealthier. Okay, so let's start with our high heat cooking oils. Now, you might have heard of something called smoke point. This is the temperature at which oils tend to break down. They can oxidize and they can produce what are called free radicals. And free radicals are like agents of aging and disease and inflammation. We want to avoid free radicals. And they're part of that oxidation process, right? So oxidation can also happen in our bodies. It can happen to different foods, but also antioxidants are what help protect our bodies from a lot of that. So just so you kind of understand like what that smoke point means and why it can be important. The highest smoke point oil that I have in my collection is avocado oil. Now this avocado oil is somewhat refined. Refined just means that it's been processed to maybe filter out sediment, maybe it's been processed to look clear, maybe be a little bit more shelf stable, or, just have like less of the like actual pulp from whatever it is in the bottle. And refining can be a good or a bad thing with oils depending on how it's done. So this is naturally refined. It has a 500-degree smoke point. So avocado oil is great for like basically general purpose cooking, high heat cooking, low heat cooking. It has a very neutral flavor. You can use it in a vinaigrette just as easily as you could use it in a super hot sheet pan roasted veggies, or a sheet pan dinner or something where your oven temp is like 450. So avocado oil is a great choice. It's kind of like I would say it's like my desert island oil. We'll talk a little bit more about other kinds of avocado oil as we go down the line, but this is the highest heat oil in my collection. Another really high heat friendly cooking oil is ghee. Now, ghee is essentially clarified butter. So that means that it's been cooked down, all the whey and milk solids have been removed. So it's essentially dairy-free. Now, there's kind of some gray area there. Some people who are highly sensitive to dairy can't tolerate ghee, but a lot of people who are sensitive to dairy can. And the nice thing about that is it gives us an option that we can use that has that nice, rich, buttery flavor for cooking without, the casein and lactose and the things that can be inflammatory for some of us when it comes to dairy. Now, the smoke point of this is 485 degrees. So also very high. So also, this is a saturated fat, and a lot of saturated fats are solid at room temperature. That's just, kind of a tidbit for knowing like how fats differ, and we get into more about like the molecular structure of different fats, saturated versus unsaturated, polyunsaturated versus monounsaturated. We do a little bit more nerding out in my full-length podcast video about healthy fats. So I will also put the link in the show notes for that if you want to kind of dive into more of the chemistry around different types of fats and why some might be healthier for different purposes than others. Going down the line, one of my next favorite, most delicious cooking fats is macadamia oil. Now, I don't list this in my recipes very often. I normally will say avocado oil just because it's so much more common. It's something so many more people tend to have on hand. But if you'd like to try another high heat friendly cooking oil that's also delicious, it has this really rich buttery taste and can be used in anything from a vinaigrette to, a stir fry or a sheet pan meal or something like that. Macadamia oil is a really, really wonderful option. There's tons of healthy fats in it, and it's also, a 450 smoke point. And that's even with a cold pressed oil. Okay, so let's talk about that label term. When you see an oil that says cold pressed, it means that it's been probably pressure extracted, like basically crushed, not using heat. And what that does is it helps maintain all the different nutrients and antioxidants and things. So pretty astounding to me that a nut oil that is cold pressed, unrefined, has a 450 degree smoke point. So this is a wonderful option. I've got a couple different kinds here. I do, in my at-home cooking, use macadamia oil a lot. It's wonderful. You do need to kind of think about your different oils though, for those of you who are, say, on the autoimmune protocol. Maybe you're on an elimination diet. Maybe you have a tree nut allergy or sensitivity. Got to think about that with nut oils because nut oils are not AIP compliant during the elimination phase. And of course, if you have a nut sensitivity or allergy, those might not be the best choice for you personally. But in general, macadamia nut oil is a wonderful cooking fat. Another great cooking fat for somewhat high heat cooking is another saturated fat. This is solid at room temperature, and this is rendered pork fat, which is essentially what lard is. Now, a lot of commercial store-bought lard is hydrogenated. We want to avoid hydrogenated oils and trans fats. They are not healthy for us. They're one of the worst fats that we can eat for our health in general. They're highly inflammatory, and they just contribute to disease. So something like a rendered pork fat, there's rendered chicken fat, a duck fat is another animal fat kind of in this category. This has a smoke point of 400 degrees, so it's fairly high heat friendly. Fats like this also tend to offer a lot of really delicious, rich flavor. So I don't use this a ton. I wish I had some duck fat on hand. I enjoy cooking with that a lot for things like roasted root vegetables or like roasted baby potatoes in the oven. They get so crisp and they have such a wonderful flavor from that duck fat. But this is just another option that's basically just, it's not refined. It's really just rendered from cooking down, the fat of the animal. And then you've got, this very simple and flavorful cooking fat. Next, going on down the line, this is another type of avocado oil that's extra virgin. So what that means typically is that it's not really refined. It's just been basically pressed. The oil has been extracted from the avocados and that's it. And so because this has been processed a little bit differently, it's got a little bit lower smoke point than our refined avocado oil. So this one has a smoke point of about 400 degrees. So, fairly high still. It's also, because it's extra virgin, it's also quite it's a little bit darker in color. It has a little bit more flavor to it. So there's just some nuances there in that label reading that you can kind of look for. Yeah, extra virgin, unrefined, first cold pressed. That's just kind of there's less processing done to this. So, and that means that maybe some of those healthy fats, maybe some of the antioxidants from the avocados are going to be more intact in something like this. So something to think about, but when you're doing your super high heat cooking, when you're searing something, when you're doing that stir fry or the super hot broiling something in the oven, you might want to go with something like this, naturally refined avocado oil. All right, now some of you might be surprised to see this one in the middle, still kind of in this, we're now getting into the moderate high heat cooking oils. And this is organic extra virgin olive oil. Now there's a really common myth about olive oil that you can't cook with it. It's very delicate. You can only use it for low heat cooking or salad dressings. It's dangerous to cook at high heat. And this points out, not only is there, some misunderstanding about this, but it also points out a nuance here that it isn't just about the smoke point. It's also about the stability of the oil. And what they've found is that especially with extra virgin olive oil, it's so high in antioxidants. Remember how we talked about oxidation and the, smoke point kind of breaking things down, oxidizing the oil and releasing those free radicals? Well, olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, is so high in antioxidants that it actually has a much higher smoke point than, other oils that might, fall under those same categories. So this has a smoke point of up to 400 degrees, so quite a bit higher than a lot of people are under the impression of. I use olive oil all the time. I use it for a lot of different things. Unless I'm going really hot in the oven, I love to use it with sheet pan roasted veggies because it adds so much delicious flavor. It's also one of the healthiest fats we can eat. It's friendly for all kinds of different diets, including paleo, AIP, and it's also just incredibly healthy for you. There's so much good in olive oil. There's so many studies on this. And it also just has that really delicious flavor. So some of the things I'm seeing on this label are that it's cold extracted, meaning that no heat has been applied in extracting the oil from the olives. Now heat, just even in the refining and processing of oils, when heat is applied, it can destroy some nutrients, which, is just part of the cooking process. But sometimes with really, really highly refined oils, there's a lot of heat and that can kind of start to break down the oils. So this is cold extracted, meaning that, a lot of the nutrients are going to be left intact. It's also unrefined. So, there's nothing that's been added or really done to it a whole lot to, bleach it. No chemicals added, no harsh toxic chemicals have been added to make this clear and clean and shelf stable and make it smell like nothing. Label reading becomes really, really important with olive oil because not all olive oil is created equal. Now, your typical commercial olive oil that just says olive oil on the bottle is often going to be highly refined. It could be refined using high heat methods. It could also be refined using chemical solvents. And some of those solvents are really toxic. Things like hexane is a known neurotoxin that's used in the refining of industrial oils, highly refined, industrially refined, ultra-processed cooking oils. So there is some nuance here because refined doesn't always mean, oh, this says this is refined, it's out. How is it refined? So you got to kind of, look at those labels and understand a little bit about what some of that terminology means. The other thing that tells me something on here is that this is organic. Anytime you buy an organic oil, what that means is that no GMOs were used in the, in the crops that went into that oil. The implications of that is that it's going to have less residues of some of those toxic industrial agricultural chemicals like glyphosate, which is bad for our gut health. It's very inflammatory, something we want to avoid. So I like to look for organic products when I can, because what that means is I know it's non-GMO. And the other really important thing to note here about organic cooking oils is that they can't use chemicals. They can't use those toxic chemical solvents in the processing of them. So I know this is organic, cold extracted, it's unrefined, it's extra virgin. This is, a really great thing, to cook with for a much wider range of temperatures than maybe a lot of us thought. So yeah, lots of little, tricks there with label reading. Now, surprisingly, organic, unrefined, or extra virgin coconut oil, this is another really great oil. It does add quite a bit of flavor. There's a lot of healthy fats in coconuts and coconut oil, including medium chain triglycerides, which, a lot of people are really into for like brain health and things like that. People take their MCT oil and whatnot. This is listed on this particular product. It says up to 350. With this product, this, type of cooking fat, I do see it go up to 400. It kind of depends on like the packaging and what they list, but I find there's a range there with organic unrefined coconut oil. Now you can also get like refined coconut oil that's liquid, it'll be like pourable, whereas this being a saturated fat, it is solid at room temperature. But there are different, types of coconut oil you can use. One thing about coconut oil that is kind of unique, that can be a pro or a con, is it has that flavor. So you got to think about what you're making and if you want that coconut flavor in it. Going on down the line, next we have walnut oil. So this is listed as having a pretty high smoke point because this particular product does say it has been expeller pressed and refined. The product I often keep on hand is actually unrefined walnut oil, and it has a much lower smoke point. Walnuts are wonderful because they have a lot of those super anti-inflammatory omega-3s. What I love to use walnut oil for is salad dressings. It's kind of one of my chef tricks for really, really delicious vinaigrettes. So again, it is a tree nut. Depending again on how it's processed, could be a little bit higher heat tolerant, but typically what I normally use is pretty low heat tolerant. Another, kind of on the lower end, I do keep organic sesame oil on hand. Sometimes if I'm doing something Asian, like a cucumber salad or something like that. This is, there's toasted sesame oil that's really strong tasting. It's dark brown. It has that nutty flavor. This is untoasted. So I do like to use this sometime. I like the taste and smell of it. This has a smoke point of about 350. I don't often, cook with super high heat with it, but just another option there. And one trick you can do if you're unsure about whether or not your oil is still good to use or not, maybe it's been hiding in the back of the pantry for a while, is give it the sniff test. Now, this smells really good. It smells a little bit like sesame seeds. It smells like food. It doesn't have any stale or off aromas. If it does, you'll know. There's usually kind of like a bitter, unappealing flavor. If you detect that in any of your pantry oils, it's time to throw them out, because that's also a factor that can, indicate that some oxidation has happened. The oil is basically rancid. Even if it's something like this organic, unrefined, cold pressed, extra virgin olive oil, if it stinks, it's not going to be good for your health anymore. So don't want to use it. Now, I put this other olive oil at the end of the line just because, all of those antioxidants, right? And yes, olive oil, extra virgin olive oil can be wonderful for higher heat cooking than we may have been led to believe. But if you want to get the maximum amount of like health benefits and nutrients from that olive oil, I think it is a wonderful olive oil for like drizzling on veggies, finishing things with. I might do like a pureed cauliflower soup and drizzle some olive oil on just before eating it, which looks really pretty, adds that bright kind of sometimes peppery or grassy olive oil flavor, and also gives us the full benefit of all those amazing healthy fats and antioxidants that are found in extra virgin olive oil. Finally, at the end of the line, this isn't actually, it's a fat essentially, but it's not really a cooking oil. These are my ground flax seeds. I used this Forte flax and I put this in like my smoothies. After I blend them up, I'll just stir some in. I love this for fiber and I love it for omega-3s and lignans, really healthy, super anti-inflammatory fats. I included this because flax oil is another oil. You can get this in oil form where, the flax seeds are like cold pressed, and it's this really like super high omega-3, like virgin oil. It's highly perishable. Typically it says it needs to be refrigerated. It can be really nice on salads. It does have somewhat of like a strong flavor. It's not something I usually keep on hand just because I personally don't love the taste, but I wanted to mention it as like probably one of the lowest heat cooking oils. You don't want to cook with flax oil really whatsoever. So yeah, flax oil isn't really something you want to cook with, but I did want to mention it because it's so healthy, it's so high in omega-3s, it's so anti-inflammatory. That can be a really kind of interesting option to experiment with in your cooking, drizzling it on veggies, even putting a little bit in a smoothie or something like that can be, kind of something you can play around with. So I'll link to all of these in the video description, along with some of my other favorite healthy cooking fats and oils. So before we sign off today, let's talk about what kind of cooking fats and oils you want to avoid. So first, we want to avoid those highly industrially refined oils, okay? Those are like the corn oil, the vegetable oil, which might be made with a blend of like corn, soybean, peanut, all kinds of things. Oftentimes like sunflower oil, all of those like really, really super highly refined oils that are not organic. They're made from GMO crops, and they are processed using some toxic chemicals and also often processed using high heat, which degrades the oils. But this is like your typical like oil that comes in the big plastic jug. It's the oil that goes into the deep fryer at the restaurant. And while there might be some health benefits to some of those oils, a lot of them are also often high in omega-6s. Now, omega-6s aren't necessarily bad, but what we found in the standard American diet that's very high in ultra-processed foods is that a lot of us are getting way too many omega-6s in relation to our omega-3s. We actually want more omega-3s than omega-6s. Otherwise, if we get too heavy in those omega-6s especially from things like those super highly industrially refined oils in the potato chips and French fries and things like that, it can lead to inflammation. So that's one aspect of unhealthy fats that we want to avoid. Also, things like trans fats, the partially hydrogenated oils, margarine kind of falls into that category. So not really a healthy fat there. Also, in terms of, us as thyroid thrivers, you also want to think about things like goitrogenic foods that might have some thyroid inhibiting properties. Now, in some of my other videos, I've talked about this. We're not going to be afraid of things like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and kale and all these wonderful, highly nutritious goitrogenic fruits and vegetables. The recommendation around that is typically to just cook those foods whenever possible, and some raw is typically fine for most of us in moderate amounts. But when you're talking about things like soy and canola oil, those two very common oil ingredients are actually goitrogens that do not get destroyed by by the typical methods. They're not destroyed by heat application. Their goitrogenic properties are not often destroyed by fermenting. So there's that aspect of things like soy and canola oil. Also, those are two crops that are often very GMO, highly sprayed with agricultural chemicals. And those agricultural chemicals have been shown to impact the thyroid directly. So, can we always buy organic? Probably not. Honestly, a lot of times when I'm shopping, I'm looking for what's the best choice I can choose that's on sale right now, So I try different brands and things like that. But just some things to think about there if you're keeping things like vegetable oil and canola oil on hand. They're really not the best choices for our thyroid-friendly cooking needs. And then, we also want to think about with those highly refined oils, of course, they're processed with those toxins that can lead to inflammation. The hexane, again, is that known neurotoxin, and there's some different opinions out there on this, really looking at the science. Are they really that unhealthy? My question is always, if I know that this is made this way, if I know it has some ingredients in it that may not support my health, why wouldn't I make the healthier choice that I feel much more confident in? So, and there's so many clues we can get when we understand how to read those labels about how the oils were refined. Is it organic, and all the implications of that? So, I'm just here to empower you with information so that you're able to make the best, most informed choices for your health, because I know that's important to you, and I know that's what you're here for. I hope this video has helped you feel more confident about your choices so that you don't feel so overwhelmed and confused in the grocery store aisle about what the heck kind of oil should I choose. So now some of the label terminology, about different cooking fats for different cooking purposes, high, medium, and low heat cooking, about some of the different ways oils are treated and how that can make them more or less healthy for you. So if you found this helpful, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more thyroid-friendly food and lifestyle content. Don't forget, I've put all of this information together for you in a simple download, my guide to healthy fats and oils. I'll put the link in the description for you so you can download that instantly today. Also, if you want to deep dive with me into this topic, head on over to my full-length 1-hour podcast on healthy fats, where we'll really kind of nerd out a little bit more about some of the chemistry around healthy fats. We'll dive a little bit deeper into this topic, and you can learn more. If you have a thyroid-friendly cooking fat or healthy cooking fat you'd like to use, or if there's one you've been using and you're not quite sure about, drop it in the comments. I'd love to answer your questions about that, and it's helpful for everybody else to share, hey, I really have been enjoying cooking with this or that. So always fun to connect as a community that way and share tips with each other for thyroid-friendly cooking. Last but not least, don't forget to download my free guide to healthy cooking fats and oils. You can find that at hypothyroidchef.com/fats, or I'll put that link in the show notes for you, along with the links to the products. All right, thanks so much for spending this time with me today. I'm Ginny Mahar, your thyroid health and cooking coach, wishing you happy cooking, happy thriving, and the best of health. See you next time.